Good afternoon again. For our final presentation, we have Zoe Saft presenting Liebstrom number 3 in A flat major.
If you know me, you know that I travel a lot, and internationally as well. So a few years ago, my family and I were traveling in Europe, and that was my first time there. We went to both France and Italy. And so one morning, we were walking around Florence, and we went over the Ponte Vecchio, which is it's a very famous bridge with a lot of shops. And then we passed the Uffizi Gallery, and we got to the City Hall. And inside, there was a grand piano, but there was a sign next to it that said it could only be played from 4:30 to 6:30 in the evening. So I spent the whole day convincing and unconvincing myself if I would end up playing. So some of you may have heard me play before, but you might not know that I'm pretty shy of playing in front of people, and so it's difficult for me to do it. But I ended up playing in the City Hall of Florence. And at the end of the trip, we flew out of the Paris airport, and there was another piano that was in a lounge area between a couple of gates, and I played there as well. And so when I'm traveling internationally, everybody speaks a different language, but I notice that everybody still reacts. And so it's like a language that everybody understands, even if they're all strangers. So this piece I'm going to be playing is called Liszf, which means dreams of love. And it was originally a poem that was written by Ferdinand Fröhlich in 1829. And Liszf didn't release the piece until 1850. So there was quite a bit of time, and I believe he read the poem, and then he wrote the piece based off of how his experience were with love and grief, which is what the poem is about. And so something very unique to think about is back then, he wrote it based on the poem and his experiences. But when I'm playing piano, I'm playing and I have a different experience. And each of you listening also has a different experience based on love and grief that you've encountered. So at the beginning of the piece, there's the note C that you can see is highlighted in blue, and it's played a bunch of times, and so it's the one constant, and it's like love that stays the same, but all the notes around it change it. So these notes make up certain chords, and these chords end up making this part of the piece sound very complete because they follow the circle of fifths, which you might recognize. So it goes from C to F, B flat, E flat, and then A flat, which is the key that the piece is in. So you can see these chords make up those notes. So that was part of the beginning, and it has a certain ending. And the part right after that is a bit different. All of the notes have changed and the chords as well, but the endings sound the same. And so that's similar to not the English version, but the original version of the poem that's in German, because it rhymes at the end of the two lines. So I'm going to play both of them, and you can listen for the similar endings. This is the next part in the piece, and you can see the note E. It's repeating a bunch of times. Again, it's like a constant. Like love, you can love someone for a very long time, but the type of love that you have for them can change. So you can hear the last chord that I just played. It might have sounded a little bit unhappy. It's a minor key, so that was E flat. And then after that is a D flat minor chord. And these two chords, with all of this, it just oscillates between those two chords, and it creates a lot of life in the piece. As well as the descending scale that you can see, it is one of the two times in the piece that there's just one hand playing by itself. And so I think that can be compared to maybe after you've lost a loved one and it feels kind of lonely. So this part in the piece, you can see there's a lot of really big chords and a lot of notes. This is the most grand part of the piece. It's speeding up and the textures get increasingly more difficult. So I'm not going to play this now, but you will hear it when I play the full piece. In this part, it has a lot of notes that are descending, and so it sounds like falling down, and I think it can be compared to having butterflies in your stomach. So this is the beginning of the ending part. It ties back to the main theme. It sounds very similar, but there are ornaments that are added in, and so it sounds a lot more delicate, and it's a bit quieter, kind of like a dream fading away. So this part, it has chromatic tenths that are descending. So chromatic means that the notes are right next to each other, and it's a span of 10 notes in between. And so this makes this part of the piece sound kind of bitter. And so hopefully you can hear those chords on the left hand. And this is the end of the piece. There are some questions at the end, and it sounds very uncertain. So you'll hear a question being asked, and there will be a pause, and then you'll hear it again. now I'm going to play the whole thing and listen for the parts that I mentioned. Churchill, who unfortunately couldn't be here. I would like to thank my parents and Mr. Phillips for helping me, and Ms. Wong and Mr. Rice for their feedback during rehearsals. What questions do you have? Yes.
Started writing your own music, you understand, the emotional language.
I haven't really, no. I have been playing piano for many years now, but I didn't do a lot of music theory for the beginning many years. So it's very interesting to start understanding it, but I haven't started writing music now. Are you? Well, it's very unique. I could have picked, Liszf is one of the composers that writes some of the most difficult music, but this piece is more pretty than difficult. So I could have picked a more difficult piece, but this piece is unique in that it has a poem behind it and a story behind it, and that's unusual. And
you may have mentioned this, but how long did it take you to learn this piece?
I think just a few months. I started it after the summer and I learned it over the fall. Dr. Stotts?
One question back here.
Yeah.
How old were you when you decided to play, when you saw the sign, when you were only in 4th grade?
That was, in Italy, that was 3 years ago. So I was about 15. Yes. A bit, yeah, but it's very unusual to have a poem be written alongside the music. So it was really cool to see, how they're related to each other. Yeah. Thank you very much.